Okay, I think we have Rebecca.
I'm here. I've literally had no
Hi,
end of
Rebecca.
technical issues, so sorry I'm late.
Oh, good. We are live.
Fabulous. Well, there you go. I'm never normally late. Lateness is not in my vocabulary.
Good. Great
But
to see you.
Great to see you too. How are you?
Good to
Very
see you.
good. Very good. Thank you so much.
Good.
Glad we got to do this. And yeah, thank you again for making the time.
Yes, thank you so much.
Let's kick off. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to discuss the logistics situation in the GCC. My name is Leah. I'm the co-founder of Fashion Tech Middle East, a community for small and medium fashion brands and startups building at the intersection of tech and fashion. And I'm joined today by my co-founder, Karine, and our guest speaker, Rebecca Griffiths. So it has been just over a month since the conflict began. It has hit everyone. It's been very challenging and has created a lot of disruption. However, it's not the first shock that has happened to the industry. So we've seen COVID, obviously, in the last 5 years. We've seen the Red Sea disruptions that have happened. However, this has happened very quickly and felt like overnight. So the Strait of Hormuz had shut overnight. As we all know, it's a waterway that carries 20% of the world's oil supply, but also is a major artery for the Gulf trade. Dubai Airport, major hub, also had a lot of disruptions, although that seems to be sort of recovering now from what we understand. And of course, the oil prices that keep rising. So it's the perfect storm. But I guess what we wanted to talk about today is our report that we published last week to dive into the logistics, but also from a lens of the independent and small brands, because that kind of category often gets overlooked, and they're the ones that get hit the most, I would say. So there are sort of 3 levels of impact that we want to look at, and that's how Karine and I think about it. First is the logistics side, so supply side, if you like. That's route disruptions, air freight rates, everything that has to do with actually getting the stock to its destination. Number 2 is the demand, and that's sort of been disrupted as well because it came during Ramadan and Eid windows, which are very big for retail in the region, and obviously the tourism and the expat departures have not helped. And then finally, we cannot forget about the human side. And the human side being the founders, the teams, and the mental and physical impact that it's having on operators across the GCC. And the impact is not equally distributed. Certain countries are struggling more than others. But I guess the idea of today is to bring you, Rebecca, on board to help us shed some light and highlight what is happening on the ground, and also maybe some takeaways, lessons, things that the brands can consider going forward. So thank you for being here. Rebecca is the founder and CEO of Primis. I will get her to do an intro of who she is and what Primis does, and then we'll jump into some questions. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you very much. So yeah, my name is Rebecca Griffiths. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Primis. So we're a logistics customer experience platform. So we work with retailers and brands all over the world who look at the GCC market as their growing market. And yeah, as Leah was saying, the last 4, 5, 6 weeks was certainly not on any of our calendars for Ramadan and Eid, and it certainly wasn't on our calendars for 2026. And what's happened is definitely a significant upheaval, let's call it that. That's happened for the world of logistics, the world we run our entire lives through logistics, whether that be gas and oil, whether that's moving products from A to B, from factory into the GCC. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive into the challenges that we've seen. We've had a number of, let's call it, crisis meetings with partners and our cargo and freight team, and even our customers as well, to try to steady the ship, because a lot of our brands that we support are not based in the GCC. So they're only really listening and learning to what they're hearing through the media, what they're hearing through, news reports. And obviously we're speaking to them completely on the ground, explaining. So yeah, I'm excited to dig into this and have a bit of a back and forth webinar. So yeah, thank you for having me again.
Amazing. Karine, should we jump into some questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing your thoughts. And I'm very excited to hear your point of view of this whole situation right now. And my first question would be, would you describe the current situation in the GCC as a disruption or rather as a structural shift?
I think the current state of logistics in the GCC is described as it's a constraint. It's a massive blocker at the moment. That's how I would best describe, especially with the Strait of Hormuz, which is currently the traffic is down by around 95%, and that ongoing instability is always going to cause a bottleneck. Not now, but in the coming weeks and months ahead, because again, if you are a fashion retailer or any particular product, a lot of those products are coming in from that part of the world into the GCC, into Jebel Ali port, which is also being part of caught up in a lot of this as well. So I think for us and for me to how to describe it is a very constrained time within the shipping and freight environment. With if I look at things like air freight, so air freight particular with sea routes blocked, and obviously air freights, and of course DXB being open then closed, then open then closed, it's caused air freight to increase between 50 to 60%, which obviously is a huge hit for an SMB business and even an enterprise business. Again, we've not budgeted for this. We've definitely not put this on our plan and radar for 2026. So when you look at air freight, it has dramatically increased overnight. And now we're seeing the shift within gas and oil. Here in the UAE, the 1st of April, gas went up by 10, 20 dirhams, which, in the grand scheme of things, you look at it, but it's still gone up overnight, which is not being planned. And it certainly wasn't expected. Where a lot of that now is shifting to land. So the land bridge, as we call it, things are going via road. So logistics have shifted from being very sea dominant to now land heavy. So those goods that are going through those safe points and checkpoints, like the likes of Oman, the likes of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, are then going trucked across the areas going into the likes of UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. So everything has gone from air and sea to now completely 95% is all now going via road, which again is huge, because via road you need gas to get the trucks from left to right. So again, those customers are impacted because they will be then surcharges added on to those particular services used, again, which is a huge impact for SMB businesses.
And Rebecca, if I just jump in for a second, I think there's also a point to be made about the adaptability and how the whole ecosystem has adapted, because anecdotally, Karine and I, in our conversations with people across the industry, understand that even logistics companies that would normally be in competition with each other are actually working together to put these land bridges in place, to put this alternative methods of transportation in place in order to keep things moving. Is this kind of what you've also experienced in your dealings with logistics providers? Because we kind of feel like everyone just banded together to make sure that although it's not full capacity, but things are still sort of moving, and it's not equally distributed. For example, Saudi hasn't been maybe affected as much as the UAE, just because the expats didn't leave in such huge numbers, etc. What has been your experience with that?
Yeah, that's one thing. We actually worked with a lot of our retailers who hold stock here in the UAE, and specifically in the free zone in Jebel Ali, where we were moving goods from factory into, or it was planned that we were moving the goods from factory into the UAE over time. But how we've done that is we've known that there is multiple brands that sit in a certain area of China, let's call it that, where we grouped those shipments together. We consolidated them under one importer, and then brought them across into one individual shipment, and basically split the costs between the brands, if that makes sense. Because again, in anything like air freight and sea freight, it's all about weight and dimensions and where the cargo is going to be sitting. So for us, we've had to sit with the retailers, and that's why we call them the crisis meetings, to kind of go, right, we need to move your goods. We need to be business as usual, but how can we try and have a massive spike in your outgoings and costs and operational costs. So let's club together, let's bring them in and then do a different route via the UAE, i.e. Oman, or via Jeddah. But of course, there's a knock-on effect of timings as well. You know, air freight, you can do it within 2 to 3 days and so forth. So yeah, it's something we're continuously talking to all of our brands about, from the UK, but also from origin into the UAE as well.
I mean, there is basically 2 points that you mentioned. It's cost and time, right? Can you tell us a bit more about like how much more it's costing brands or companies to get goods from A to B, and what implication it has on time-wise as well?
Yeah, so I'll give you one example. So one of our brands who have just over we do weekly collections for them from a sea and air freight. And we've seen their air freight costs literally go up by 200%. So
Wow.
they've even then gone to us, maybe we'll hold that one back. We need to send these because they're going into physical stores in, like, say, Dubai Mall, and we need the inventory, but we'll leave out ecom and just let ecom not completely run out, but we have enough in the 3PL, we have enough in our warehouse, but we need to keep fulfilling the stores that we have inventory in. So move those first as a priority, and we'll potentially hold back, or could you keep us up to date if there's any new airlines with new capacity that have potential better rates. So again, it's something we continuously keep doing with ourselves, but also with our partners as well. But yeah, some have gone up by 200%.
Wow, that's massive.
Crazy.
Is this also the reason why independent brands or smaller brands are hit so much harder now, or in these moments and moments of crisis? Or what do larger players basically structurally have better, or that smaller ones don't have? What's the difference?
Yeah. One thing about logistics, it's a volume game. It's all about volume that you're putting through the network, whether you're doing the first mile, which is the origin, that's the freight, that's sea and road, that's the first mile. Then the middle mile is going into the likes of, into DXB, into Riyadh from a custom and duties perspective. And then the final mile is that delivery carrier. In the logistics world, it's all about numbers, and that's why you'll find your enterprise businesses, they spend X amount of shipping and freight costs with a particular shipping line, so forth, and they will have, let's call it, competition rates that is very, very good, versus an SMB where they're a bit infrequent. They don't ship every month. They probably ship every quarter. They probably ship 2 times a year. So in the nicest possible way, and it's just the way the logistics world is, sometimes they get the bad end of the stick because they haven't got the volume, versus the ones who are, let's call it, the Shalhoubs of the world, where they're shipping constantly. So their volume is always up. So they get the best rates. They get the best allocation with the airlines. And yeah, it's volume, which has always been the case. And sadly, it will continue to be that for forever and always.
Okay, yeah, that's it's a very important point. Also, for smaller brands, maybe to also take into consideration what they can do better, and this leads basically to my next question. So, where are brands? Could be bigger brands, but mainly smaller brands, most blind today in their supply chains? What are they constantly underestimating?
Great question. A lot of brands underestimate the inventory planning. So inventory planning is key when working with, a solution like us, where we need to know the frequency of your goods moving from A to B. How frequently are you doing that? And also as well, there's sometimes some brands are moving goods when they don't need to. So we also work with them on a cost analysis to say, why are you moving that? Because it's only then just sitting in a warehouse for 3 months. Do you really need to bring that into the region and pay the duties, pay the taxes, pay all that supply chain costs for it just to sit in a warehouse for an X period of time? But again, it's very much down to inventory planning, merchandise planning, making sure you have the right people, experienced people, which then work very alongside logistics and supply chain managers, directors, leaders of those businesses to again make sure your inventory capacity planning correctly. You have the right airlines, you have the right sort of freight partners working with you. But I think something like what's happened over the last 6 weeks or so has completely just whatever you have down on paper just doesn't work right now. You've just got to go with what solution is right to get the goods out and kind of throw out what you've been doing for the short period of time for normality to come back to us, we hope, very, very soon.
Yeah.
Independent brands, and that's kind of what we were thinking as well, and that's what came through in a lot of our conversations, that it's kind of the economics of it, right? So when it comes to freight, for the logistics providers as well, it needs to make economic sense. And when it's smaller brands, they just don't have the right scale. And it becomes increasingly difficult. I guess the question is there anything that can be done? And is there anything that the brands can do? In our report, we sort of suggested, diversifying logistic providers, looking at onshoring, which was something that you actually came up. When we asked for your feedback on the report, you sort of said that looking at being onshore in the GCC from a distribution perspective, anything else that you think the brands can do in order to minimize the small brands, to minimize the impact?
Yeah, I think definitely onshoring and bringing products in specifically into the free zone, because there is that tax incentive of that, you don't pay the duties and taxes until they leave from a B2B or a B2C. I think it's always good to shop around. Just because you use one freight forward partner doesn't mean they have the best rates going across town. So I think it's always good to shop around, but also like, as much as you are a fashion brand and there's other fashion brands similar, I think it's always good to talk within your network as well and go, who have you used to move something from here to here? And, but I think for us, we're always very open and transparent with all of our brands who come to say, well, we want to get into the GCC, but, it's too expensive doing it currently this way. And we come with options, we come with solutions. But I think in short, if you're an SMB, sometimes it is, as I say, it's the way the world of logistics work. It is very volume driven, and it's just trying to be different and adapt to different changes in order for it to look more fruitful on the P&L. Do you know what I mean? When you're spending that capacity of your money on freight. But yeah, I would always say just shop around as well. There's lots of different partners, different ways, and there's different solutions as well. I think people just go for the straightforward black and white solution, and sometimes there's newer partners, there's newer ways, disruptors who are then trying to solve different challenges. So yeah, my advice is always definitely don't go for the final kind of quote you've got. Definitely have 2 or 3 and measure them as well.
Can you hear me now? Is it okay again?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm back on. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point as well. But then the question, as a small brand, like, how sometimes you don't have the knowledge, right, where to look, and what's your advice? What will be the first step to shop around, or what will be easy for them to, to do, to basically just have like multiple options? You're muted now.
You're muted. I'm back. A couple of options could be that hyper-local sourcing. So again, if you're a brand, you probably want to source your manufacturing. So i.e. look for GCC base. So manufacturers for packaging, raw materials, just basic elements. Again, depending on who you are as a business, instead of sourcing it, 6,000 miles away, look at something that's more homegrown. And if you're really, really wanting to develop this region, go down that particular way. So hyper-local sort of sourcing that piece. Cooperative shipping is always definitely one. So aggregators, like I mentioned, don't just go with DHL, don't just go with, DSV, and I've got nothing against any of those 2 names, but don't just go with the mainstream ones. There's other smaller businesses that have different shipping lines, have different commercial agreements, but sometimes it is down to not what you know, it's who you know. So speak to other retailers, speak to your network of the industry you're in to really leverage, well, what are you doing? And could there be a way that we could leverage the freight together, because it's going to one single point anyway, i.e. Dubai, or we're in the same facility in Dubai South. So look at it that way. but also as well, especially right now, is that inventory buffering is what I would call it. Is yes, you will order every week for this for the small retailers. It might be worthwhile holding off those big orders at the moment if you don't necessarily need them now. So plan between 3 to 4 months is how I would look at as that safety buffer and that safety net. And then work back from there with a hope and a prayer that everything will go back to normal, but you're not going to have all of those numbers back to how they were 6 weeks ago. There's going to be a period of time where they are going to be high, and there's going to be additional surcharges added on, because that's just the way, again, logistics works. And it's again, going into your business now, looking at your inventory, looking at your stock movement and going, what do we urgently need now? And what could we potentially buffer and wait for the next couple of months? And that's a business decision between inventory, supply chain, and of course the C-suite team as well.
Just a follow-up question on that, Rebecca. We talked about, you mentioned things going back to normal, or when things stop, how long will the lag be? Because it's not like a flipping a switch, right? Like if the conflict ends tomorrow, there will still be a massive backlog. And that's what the shipping partners are saying, that it will take some time to clear the backlog. What kind of time frame are we looking at here in terms of getting back to some kind of normalcy or the new normal?
Personally, I think we'll see the new norm in the next 6 months. I think we're in a 6-month window. I know it feels long now, especially 6 weeks feels like we've been in this for 6 months. You know what I mean? But I think for me personally as a business owner, I'm not looking now until the end of the year. I'm looking at what do I need to do in Q2, as in April to June. What do we need to do? And then what's after that? So we're going into a summer period. We're going into, season buying. You're buying autumn, winter. You're buying summer, spring. All these different things. Again, if you're a fashion brand, is look at minimum 6 months that will hopefully turn things back around again, back to how they were 6 weeks ago. But if you look at, if any of your listeners are on here that were from the UK, you look at COVID times in the UK, that was not 6 months, that was 2 years. And some carriers even still kept the COVID surcharges on the carriers, and they never lifted them really for 2 years after everything happened and everyone went back to normal. But now obviously the likes of DHL have put a surcharge back onto air freight, a surcharge onto shipping. Will that be lifted in 6 months? I have a feeling it will be, yes. But we just don't know the knock-on effect, and we just don't know what the conversations are behind the scenes either at the moment, do we? So, yeah, plan for 6 months.
And I guess there is an element of, the GCC. I mean, I'm speaking for UAE because that's probably the market I'm more familiar with, but there is a certain level of planning for the summer, right? The summer months are always more quiet, whether it's hospitality or fashion or retail or whatever. So I think perhaps, lessons learned from COVID plus preparation for the summer season. Yes, this is going to be a very extended and very challenging sort of length of time, but hopefully the brands will be better positioned to weather that. Would you agree with that, or do you think this is kind of going to cause some structural damage that will be very difficult to overcome?
I think it will cause some damage, more for brands who are international brands that are not homegrown brands. So if you're not a brand who is solidly in the GCC region and you have physical brick and mortar, or you have your own fulfillment center, or your 3PL in it and things like that, you're on the ground, you can see. I think it will cause some short-term damage for brands who are not fully here in the region. They've just dipped their toe in, they're doing a little bit of e-com, but they're shipping it from the UK. And I've spoken to some brands where they've gone, yeah, we're just going to put that on ice at the moment. And I'm like, but why? They're like, oh, what we're reading, what we're seeing. And I'm like, yes, but what you're reading and seeing to what consumers are doing here are two very different things. But obviously you've got to be very sensitive. If that's the business choice, then of course. And then all we can do is add our advice what we think you should do next, what we should look out for next, and when is that next season drop, when is that next store opening, when is that wholesale account starting, and it's kind of taking a bit of a laser approach and looking out and going, okay, personally, put that one to one side and just focus on this particular piece of, let's call it, your wholesale business that you're wanting to do here in Dubai or across the GCC as a whole. There's different ways. And I think that's what we're doing constantly at the moment with all of our retailers who are international brands coming in, where they're going, we'll just stop everything. And I'm like, no, don't do that. That's not right. That's going to really hinder the business, not just 6 months, but longer term. Let's but maybe just reduce it slightly and hold something back and look at it again in 6 months. So, yeah, it's definitely a challenging time, but I think we hopefully the light is coming very soon.
Yeah, I hope that too. But I think it's quite an interesting point that you mentioned the international brands. I think that's kind of like the other perspective as well. So what insights can you give us in a connection with international brands, and if the consumers in the GCC are still buying, because that's probably an information that a lot of people or a lot of brands would love to know, because the assumption is probably that nobody's buying anything anymore.
Yeah, I'll give you a really good example. So one of the brands we were talking to was a luxury swimwear brand based out of the UK. We spoke to them in January. Their plan was to launch a D2C experience in April, so Q2. We were literally getting everything prepared for them. And then obviously this happened 6 weeks ago. We got in contact with them. They were like, well, no one will want to buy our product now. And I'm like, but why do you say that? Well, because no one's going out. I'm like, but again, in the UAE, they're trying to get the locals out. They want you to fill the beach clubs and the rooftops and all these different things. But again, if you're a brand sitting in the UK, you're not fully in the region to know what is going on, how busy are the malls, how busy is the restaurants, how busy are the beach clubs. So this particular swimwear brand was just like, yeah, we're just going to put it on hold at the moment. But why? Your consumers are still buying. So I said to them, okay, we'll go back into Shopify and measure the next couple of weeks then if you're going to get any purchases. And I'm due to connect with them tomorrow to say, right, I've given you 2 weeks. Have you had any sales? Have the customers still bought the product? Because I can assure you now, they would have done. They've not completely shut down. I think people are kind of using this as a bit of this is what happened in COVID. And this went on for years. And it's not, you
similar.
can't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only go by with, this is what we experienced in 2020, which in a way I understand that. Like when it first all started, the roads were very, very quiet. A lot of people left. And it's that initiative now of driving people back into hospitality, driving people back into the malls. And I have continued my day as business as usual, knowing that, yes, there's something going on, but for my own sake, I need to keep going in my own personal life and doing the things I like to enjoy, going to the gym, going places. But again, it's that international brand where they just go, yeah, we'll just pause that project. Well, how long are you going to pause it for? Because if you pause it, some other brand will then get ahead of you, and then you're behind the curve again, and then you're going back over everything again. So again, it's that chicken and egg scenario. But obviously, you can't force a brand if they don't feel comfortable coming in. Then that's fine. Then we'll halt it, and we'll come back in 3 months' time, and we'll keep you up to date with what's going on. But that is a prime example. They were all ready for April. April is the time. We've got collaborations with some beach clubs that we're going to be working with. And I feel like overnight, that's just completely gone. And don't think we're going to do that anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is, you mentioned the media coverage, right? So I think that doesn't help, because I agree. I think what the rest of the world sees and what specifically in UAE, what people are experiencing on the ground is very different. And I think that's kind of where the sentiment also comes from. But I think there will be a massive shift towards driving more people, more expats, just more economic activity in general. So I completely agree on that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say that's why probably, like, like on the ground information and data is so important, and you touched on that, Rebecca, as well. So basically, you told your client to look at the data, right, like sales data, and I think that's probably something that many brands tend to probably underestimate or just not look into as much as they should. And because we're from Fashion Tech Middle East, we're very much interested in data and also technology. And there's a lot of talk about technology and also solving supply chain issues. From your perspective, what would you say? Does technology actually fix that, or how can technology support that? And what does it not do?
I think, if you look at it from a technology perspective, a lot of brands, again, going back to who we work with, are all on Shopify. They're all on international markets. They're shipping all over the world. And we're very data centric. You've got to make calculated decisions through data. You can't just have this, we've got to stop. We can't do it anymore. And it's like, don't get to that point so quickly. Let's just sit, let's go over everything and plan for, let's say it will finish in 6 weeks, but maybe it'll finish in 6 months. So what can we do now, and what can we do in 6 months, and what is the business impact for us over the next 6 months? And I think a lot of brands, I'm pretty sure, have done that. But again, use the data you've got, use your data from your WMS systems, use your data from your freight, or your shipping. What did you do this time last year? What sales did you do this time last year? What's the impact you're going to have this time 6 months ahead? Where's that dip going to come? Is it that dip won't automatically come the next day? It may come in 2 months' time, where you'll see that sale go down. So use that data, use it correctly, work with your partners, and partners like ourselves and many others, because if you don't work with your partners, you're not getting the industry insight. So then take that data back in-house to then make those calculated decisions to go, okay, let's just weather this storm. We're going to be okay. Let's probably ease back on doing a once-a-week collection from origin. Maybe we go to 4 weeks, because we're okay with inventory at the moment, because inventory is not going out the door as quickly as it was. So let's cut unnecessary shipments where we don't need to do it. And I think we've all been challenged enough in the last even 6 years we've all made different decisions and business changes because we've had to adapt to the current situation we're in now. But use data. Don't just go panic of what you're listening and reading. That's how you're going to make your business decision. That's the wrong way to do that. But yeah, speak to your partners, speak to your colleagues, speak to other people in your network and go, how are you doing this? And you're selling a similar product or a similar price range to us. There's competition, but everybody's in the same boat if you look at it like that. Everyone clubs together in times of need when there's something like this going on in the world. So yeah, very data centric and very data driven to make that next move over the next few months ahead.
Yeah. And I think it brings us to a point of communication, right? One thing that keeps coming up for us is communicating with your customers. If you're a brand, sort of communicating delays, communicating any disruption, and also communicating with your suppliers and with your partners. Even in preparing the report, we sort of went with the assumption and publicly available information that, all airports are shut, no cargo is going through. And then when you start talking to logistics providers, it turns out that actually there are certain signs of recoveries. Abu Dhabi is operating, Sharjah is operating. There are ways around it. It's just not to full capacity. So I think that, as you say, Rebecca, staying in touch, communicating with both partners and customers is so important to just get a holistic picture of what's going on and what your options are as well.
100%. 100%. And as I say, don't go the normal way you used to do things. Try different ways. Be experimental in these times of change, because you may find a new supplier, you may find a different shipping route, and there's lots of different ways that we've navigated a lot of our clients' shipments coming through via Oman, coming in via Corsican, and then driving through to Dubai. And there's all these different ways you can do that, but it's talking to your suppliers. We want to talk to you. We want to give you real-time updates and real-time next steps, so you're not sitting there panicking. So Again, prime example, we had the floods or, the bad rain even this time last week. One of our warehouse partners could not open on the Friday because everything was flooded. So communicate that. But customers know. Some customers accept it. Some customers are like, no, I still need my parcel, deliver it to me. But again, it's that communication. It's an act of God of what's happened, with the likes of the weather. But just always communicate and keep all those lines of things open between your partners, suppliers, wholesalers, buyers, and just keep talking, and you'll find ways of getting out of this. So, yeah.
I like that positivity, and I think it's also a good opportunity for brands, for SMEs, to look at their logistics data, at their stock as well, as you mentioned it, Rebecca, and then the whole supply chain. So it's actually a good opportunity to also have your data set ready, or all the data, and to use the data as well. And I think it's a massive opportunity as well. I was just wondering, how can you and your company help the brands, the SMEs? What can you do for them?
Yeah, I think for us, I love SMEs. We were, I founded this business six years ago where it was just myself, and I love to help and support other businesses in growing and being successful. I think for us, we'd love to sit down with individual brands and just really get under the bonnet of what they're doing, how they're doing it. Are they doing it in a cost-effective way? Have they got the right partners? Have they got the right factories and things like that? We love that beginning of the relationship, because I love to then see in 6 months' time of they've saved X amount of money by just switching one thing in the business, that they can use that money elsewhere, somewhere else within merchandising or buying or so forth. So I think for us, we help a lot of SME businesses to really, you focus on running the business, focus on what you're good at, bring in people like us who want to come in and get under the bonnet, figure out what's working, figure out what's not working, but also what is working cost effectively as well. And I think that's where we really thrive in our technology. We're very Shopify led. So we have the Shopify native apps that we just plug into things. We can then look at the data. We have the WMS systems. We have the ERP that we plug into all of those. And then we go away and build that business case and say, look, working with someone like us, this is the cost saving, but this is a solution that we're proposing that we believe is the right fit for you as a brand of 4 employees shipping just domestically in the GCC or even internationally. Have you got the right rates? Have you got the right carriers? Have you got the right experience? Which is where our technology really comes into play for those SME businesses.
That's amazing. Leah, do you have any other questions?
I do not. No, thank you very much. I'm just being conscious of time. I would have loved to bring in some audience questions. However, we did have technical issues. So I have my fingers crossed that this whole thing is recorded and we will be able to post it across LinkedIn and socials in a recorded form. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here today and for bringing your insights. This has been really, really useful. Apologies for all the technical difficulties that we've had, but I hope that our audience will find this really useful. And yes, thank you, and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah,
indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining on the webinar as well. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.